Tonight we're going to start off with Carlos Bulosan, America's in the Heart. Carlos Bulosan is widely considered the greatest Filipino overseas writer with numerous poems, short stories, and books to his name. Born the son of a poor farmer in Pangasinan, he spent most of his adult life in the United States as a laborer and labor organizer. Using his own personal experiences as well as those of his comrades in the labor movement, Bulosan wrote the now classic semi-fictional autobiography America's in the Heart, published in 1946. His short story collection, The Laughter of My Father, was translated in several languages. Mr. Bulosan died at the age of 44 in Seattle, Washington in 1956. Today, the excerpt from America's in the Heart will be narrated by Andrew Eisenman. Andrew Eisenman has acted in theater, film, and television. He has appeared in HBO on the series The Sopranos, and in films such as Rigadon, Missy, and Cardiac. His latest short film, Johnny Loves Dolores, was nominated for the Golden Reel Award at the LA International Film Festival. He has worked with numerous theater groups, including the New York Public Theater, the Mayi Theater Company, and the National Asian American Theater Company. Andrew received a Master of Fine Arts in Acting from Brandeis University. He was an Associate Director at Mayi Theater and is currently the Director of Artistic Development at Leviathan Lab. Please give me a round of applause for Andrew Eisenman.
America's in the Heart by Carlos Bulosan. I began to be afraid, riding alone in the freight train. I was in flight again, away from an unknown terror that seemed to follow me everywhere. Dark flight into another place toward other enemies. I crawled to a corner of a car and fell asleep. When I awakened, the train was already in San Jose. I jumped outside and found another freight going south. I swung aboard and found several hobos drinking cans of beer. I sat and watched them sitting solemnly as though there were no more life left in the world. They talked as though there was no more happiness left, as though life had died and would not live again. I wondered what I had in common with them beside the fact that we were all on the road rolling to unknown destinations. I was so exhausted and stiff from the cold when I reached San Luis Obispo that I could scarcely climb down. I stumbled when I reached the ground, rolling over on my stomach as though I was headless. Then I walked to town where I found a Filipino who took me to his Cartipismo beach. Beyond the town, at the railroad crossing, highway patrolmen stopped our car. Speaking to me in our dialect, Doro, my companion, said, "These bastards probably want to see if we have a white woman in the car." "Why?" I asked him, becoming frightened. "They think every Filipino is a pimp," he said. "There are more pimps among them, all the Filipinos in the world put together. I will kill one of those bastards someday." They questioned Dora curtly, peered into the car, and told us to go on. I came to know afterward that in many ways it was a crime to be a Filipino in California. I came to know that the public streets were not free to my people. We were stopped each time this vigilant patrolman saw us driving a car. We were suspect each time we were seen with a white woman. And perhaps it was this narrowing of our life into an island, into a filthy segment of American society, that had driven Filipinos like Doro inward, hating everyone and despising all positive urgency toward freedom. When we reached the mountains to the right of the highway, we turned toward them and started climbing slowly, following the road that winds around them like a taut ribbon. We had been driving for an hour when we reached the summit, and suddenly the town of Lompok shone like a constellation of stars in the deep valley below. We started downward, hearing the strong wind from the sea beating against the car. Then we came to the edge of the town, and church bells began ringing somewhere near the forest. It was the end of the flower season, so the Filipino workers were all in town. They stood on the sidewalks in front of the Japanese stores, showing their fat rolls of money to the girls. Gambling was going on in one of the old buildings in the Mexican district. And in the cafe across the street, Mexican girls and Filipinos were dancing. I went inside the cafe, sat near the counter, watched the plump girls dancing drunkenly. I noticed a small Filipino sitting forlornly at one of the tables. The forlorn Filipino went to the counter and asked for change. Put all the nickels in a slot and bought several packages of cigarettes. He threw the cigarettes on the table near the jukebox and called to the old Mexican men who were sitting around the place. The Mexicans rushed for the table, grabbing the cigarettes. The Filipino went out, lighting another big cigar. I followed him immediately. He walked slowly and stopped now and then to see if I was following him. There was some mysterious force in him that attracted me. When he came to a large neon sign which said Landstrom Cafe, he stopped and peered through the wide front window. Then he entered a side door and climbed the long stairs. I opened the door quietly and entered. I heard him talking to a man in one of the rooms upstairs. When I reached the landing, a hard blow fell on my head. I rolled on the floor. Then I saw him with a gun in his hand, poised to strike at my head again. And standing behind him was my brother Amado, holding a long bladed knife. I scrambled to my feet, screaming, "Brother, it is me, it's Alos, remember?" My brother told his friend to stop. He came near me, walking around me suspiciously. He stepped back and folded the blade of the knife. There was some doubt in his face. "I am your brother," I said again, holding back the tears in my eyes. "I am Alos. Remember the village of Mangusmana? Remember when you beat our Carabao in the rain? When you touched my head and then ran to Binolan? Remember, Amado?" I was not only fighting for my life, but also for a childhood bond that was breaking. Frantically, I searched my mind for another remembrances of the past which might remind him of me and reestablish a bridge between him and my childhood. "Remember when I fell from the coconut tree and you were a janitor in the Presidencia," I said. "And you bought some magazines for me to read, and then you went to work in the sugar plantations of Bulacan. If you are really my brother, tell me the name of our mother," he said casually. "Our mother's name is Meteria," I said. "That is what people call her. Her real name is Atwilia Sampayan. We used to sell salted fish and salt in the villages, remember?" My brother grabbed me affectionately, and for a long time he could not say a word. I knew then that he had loved my mother, although he had had no chance to show it to her. Yes, to him and to me afterward, to know my mother's name was to know the password into the secrets of the past, into the childhood and pleasant memories. But it was also a guiding star, a talisman, a charm that lights us to manhood and decency. "It's been so long, Alos," Amado said at last. "I had almost forgotten you. Please forgive me, my brother." "You should have written to me," he said. "You should not have come to America. But you can go back now. You can never go back, Alos." I could hear men shouting in the bar 2 blocks down the street. Then church bells started to ring again. And the wind from the sea carried their messages to the farmhouses in the canyon in the river. I knew that as long as there was hope for the future somewhere, I would not stop trying to reach it. I looked at my brother and Alfredo and knew that I would never stay with them to rot and perish in their world of brutality and despair. I knew that I wanted something which would ease my fear and stop my flight from dawn to dawn. "Life is tough, Carlos," said my brother. "I had a job for some time, but the depression came and I had to do something. I had to live, Carlos." "We are in the bootleg racket," said my brother. Alfredo and I will make plenty of money, but it is dangerous. I like money, Alfredo said. It is everything. He spoke with cynicism, but there was a grain of wisdom in their words. Do you want to go into business with us? Alfredo asked. Maybe. I will come back someday, I said. Well, I was hoping you would want to begin early, he said. There was a note of genuine disappointment in his voice. He put some money in my pocket. Here is something for you to remember me by. If you would like to go to school, said my brother in parting, just let me know. But whatever you do, Carlos, don't lose your head. Goodbye. I sat in the bus and watched them walk toward the Mexican district. I wanted to cry because my brother was no longer the person I had known in Binolan. He was no longer the gentle, hard-working janitor in the Presidencia. I remember the time when he had gone to Lingayen to cook for my brother Macario. Now we had changed. I could not understand him anymore. Please, God, don't change me in America, I said to myself, looking the other way so he would not cry.